Well, hello everyone. My name's Anne-Marie Rafferty, and it's my great honour today to introduce and also to interview Tracey Budding, Vice President of the Royal College of Nursing. So without any further ado, perhaps I could just ask you, Tracey, to give us a wee sense of what actually brought you into nursing in the first place, and how did you find your way up the career ladder? I'm sure members will be really interested in that.
Thank you, Anne-Marie, and I just want to start off by saying how privileged I feel to be taking one of these leadership roles alongside yourself, somebody I've always admired. My nursing career started out as a voluntary worker at my local psychiatric unit because I used to live over the road and my parents both worked at the local hospital, and that I'd always wanted to be a nurse, so that was sort of my start really. And I continued to do that, rushing home from school, getting a healthcare assistant's uniform on to help with caring for the patients, and I absolutely enjoyed that. And then always knew I was going to get into nursing. I then went into starting off as a healthcare assistant looking after the elderly care, and again another role that I absolutely adored, and was in that while I started a family, and the passion was always still there to become a trained qualified nurse. So I went and juggled a family, home, going back to working full time again to do my registered general nurse training. And I'd always wanted to work in neonatal intensive care, so I was very drawn to that area of nursing. And I started off working in a paediatric ward, 0 to 5-year-olds, and then finally getting a placement on neonatal intensive care. And because they were changing all the dynamics of the course at the time, and I was an adult nurse going into neonatal intensive care, I wanted to progress further, so decided to go off and do my registered sick children's nurse training while I was waiting for them to upgrade the neonatal intensive care course at the time, which was going to take some time. So decided to go off and do my registered sick children's nurse training, and had some exposure working in an orthopaedic hospital, looking after adults and paediatrics, and ended up going there instead of going back to NICU at the start of my career, being a registered general and a registered sick children's nurse. And there I developed management and leadership skills, working in the high dependency unit, looking after all post-op patients, from amputees, because it was an orthopaedic oncology hospital, to spinal operations. But I still stayed on at the neonatal intensive care unit on their bank and regularly worked there. In fact, some people didn't even realise I'd been off and done some training and left for 2.5 years because I always seemed to be at NICU. And I stayed in NICU for almost 30 years before retiring in August last year because of special class status, and during that time became a registered general nurse on the unit, then became a junior sister, a senior sister, a modern matron, took us through a CQC inspection during that 8-month acting up, and that obviously gave me more skills and knowledge and experience of working at the higher levels within the trust and regionally doing that role. And I got involved in the RCN alongside doing those roles within neonatal, and that was following an incident with a manager who had not treated me respectfully, and I happened to speak to my local RCN rep, who was very impressed on how I dealt with the situation. My mum and my uncle were both in trade unions, so you could say that it's probably in the blood for me to go down that route. and my local rep encouraged me to get involved. I went to my first Congress in 2002 and was just in awe of all the professionals, members, RCN staff. The organisation hadn't even realised there was that world out there, and was amazed and in awe of all these like-minded people getting up, speaking passionately about things that matter to them, about nurses and nursing. And the following year I ended up going into RCN Congress, presenting a resolution to further widen RCN membership to allow nursery nurses to join, because my background in neonatal, I worked alongside some very experienced and loyal nursery nurses, and they wanted to be members of the RCN, to be represented by like-minded people like myself. And I then set off on this journey to make that a reality. And I just got more and more involved, both locally. I became an activist, a steward, a safety rep, a learning rep locally. I'm the lead steward and safety rep still, and in the trust, and been involved in quite a lot of organisational changes, both within the trust that I work for and the RCN. I've done branch chair, secretary, board chair, vice chair roles, regional, national, stewards, safety reps, 2 terms of office on council, and before I became deputy president, I was the vice chair of the trade union committee that dealt with pay terms and conditions at a national level, and have been involved in that since it was set up. And yeah, so that's quite a whistle-stop tour of qualifications and RCN involvement, really.
Well, I'm just exhausted listening to you, Tracey. I think I need to go and have a wee lie down. But I mean, it's just so impressive. I mean, how you've juggled was your term, not just, you know, a highly dynamic and successful professional career with a family life and bringing up kids. But also, not only is that, you know, the sort of tandem there, but then running that alongside a hugely energetic agenda, sets of agendas for on the RCN and the professional and trade union organisational sides. I mean, that's a kind of like a DNA, that's a triple helix to like trump all triple helices. I just wonder, you know, if there's something in your career looking back that you could pinpoint, and this is a really unfair question, but really about that you're proudest of, if there was something that popped up and you said, yeah, gosh, that was it, that was the real kind of high point in terms of pride for me.
Yeah, I think because I've had such a rich clinical, professional, trade union sort of career, running in tandem almost all throughout, that it's really hard to pinpoint one episode. I think in the RCN, when I stood in awe at Congress 2002, looking at all those wonderful members speaking passionately about nurses and nursing. And then the following year, I was on that stage presenting a resolution to further widen RCN membership. That to me was a proud moment, a scary moment, because I'd never publicly spoke before, but a very proud moment. And then actually getting involved in the RCN from then on in, where I was able to join various working groups to make that resolution a reality. One of the first members to be actively involved throughout the process, because the majority of members presented their resolution at Congress, and then the staff and council members were identified to work on that, and then we would feed back to the membership the following year. And I was like, no, that's not going to happen. I want to be actively involved to make this a reality for my nursery nurses back at base. And so I was one of the first to be actively involved, and naivety in me thought it was going to happen overnight, and it took 2.5 years to get it in through the governance structures of the RCN. And that was a very proud moment, especially when I finished my first 4-year term of office on council, and healthcare support workers had a seat around that governance table. So that was like, that to me was a very proud moment. I think in my nursing career, my clinical career, I think starting out as a healthcare assistant, moving into and through the ranks and developing the trade and my leadership and management skills up to being a modern matron was another proud moment for me. And as I said before, I never went into nursing thinking I would achieve that level, but so glad I did have that opportunity to do that.
So we're obviously in challenging times, and this is probably not how you would have anticipated running the role of Deputy President. But what are your ambitions, Tracey? What do you want to achieve in the role?
Yeah, it is a very challenging time, and I prefer face-to-face meetings, and I had a vision when I put my forms in about and standing for Deputy President, that I would try and reach out to all members wherever they were, no matter what speciality they worked in. I wanted to be able to gain access and talk to members face to face to understand what it is that they want myself and you to do in our roles. This role is completely different to all the other roles that I've played, because the other roles have been mainly regional seats or governance roles, and this I see as encapsulating the whole membership. So it doesn't matter where you work in the acute, the independent or private sector, whether you are a learning rep or working in the prison services or in social care or hospice care. I want to be able to reach out to all the members, and I know that we've got some meetings coming up working with the RCN staff to try and achieve that. We do some amazing things in the organisation, but I think we could share a bit more and communicate a bit better on what brilliant stuff we're doing within the organisation, and I want to look at ways in which we can share every aspect of what we're doing, because we do some amazing stuff to support and protect members. And it's about, I see my role as signposting members. If members come to us and say, well, we need this, you know, what's the RCN's position on this, we can then contact those key people that are doing some amazing pieces of work and then share that back out with the membership. I think we're good at doing all the stuff, but we're probably a bit weak in sharing that with the membership, and the membership not understanding. And in these current times, it's about, sometimes all it takes is somebody to listen. You know, it's difficult to fix everything. I'd like to fix everything, because that's in my makeup, to try and have a problem, try and fix it. But in a pandemic where we're all dealing with it all at the same time with all the added pressures, sometimes it just takes somebody to listen and somebody to signpost them to where they can get the information and the appropriate support. You know, encouraging them to use their local reps and their local, their regional and country offices about raising those concerns at a local, regional and country level, so that we can pick that up at a national level.
Thinking about the period when we might be beyond the worst of the challenge as well. Tracey, is there anything that you sort of dream of and think, wow, you know, truly ghastly though this pandemic is and has been and has huge consequences for our members and for our colleagues and, you know, their loved ones as well. There's no one's life has remained untouched by the pandemic. Have you got any thoughts on how we might be able to turn the pandemic into something where we can gain something positive from it for the profession, if it can represent a, dare I say, an inflection point, a turning point for achieving some of the goals that perhaps in the past have been more difficult to achieve, but maybe by chance the pandemic can actually help us to achieve some of those long-term goals in a much shorter and truncated period of time.
Yeah, I think obviously safe staffing is quite a topical issue at the moment, and having worked in a speciality where the staffing levels, and not just the staffing levels but the appropriate skill mix is so crucial to working in a neonatal intensive care unit. And I've seen over the years the struggles with keeping up pace with training and developing nurses to that skill set to work in that very specialist area. And I think safe staffing with, you know, up to 50,000 nurses short prior to a pandemic, added on top of that winter pressures. We always knew that when we started in the pandemic that come the winter it was going to be much worse because of the added winter pressures that the NHS and independent and private sector go through every year. And that has been down to very poor workforce planning for not just a few years but decades. I think we need to continue to press the government on investment in staffing levels and appropriate workforce plans, and find somebody that's going to take accountability for that, because they've all ducked and dived it for many years. So that I'd like to see getting, you know, the pandemic has highlighted that this is not just facts and figures. This is about our future workforce, our future health and safety of the nation, and it's about working together more collectively and being honest when we get it wrong, because none of us are perfect, but we need to just, you know, be honest and pull together to help and support our members, no matter where they work, as well as all the other allied health professionals that keep the NHS and the independent sector running day in, day out, 365 days a year. We're already starting to do that roadmap of key stakeholders that we want to engage with, and I'm hoping that we can do that to improve. It's going to take a long time, but I think we'll get there. We've got the dedication and the support from everybody, and that's what we need, all pulled together. No political games anymore. Too many lives have been lost for that. I've lost colleagues and you know, who were just doing their best, and I don't want that to happen in the future.
Tracey, we're getting towards the end of our time, but I think, you know, I can just feel the power in your voice pulsing across the screen. But I mean, I think that passion, that commitment that you express, and that vision of working together and combining our mighty forces across the college and with other organisations, and continuing to speak truth to power as Donna and others do so ably. I think it's, of course, the old Obama saying, together we can, but together we most certainly will. And with your will there, I'm sure we will succeed. Tracey, it's a great honour and a privilege to be working with you. I'm certainly relishing and really enjoying that experience. I want to thank you on behalf of all of our members for all that you have done, all that you continue to do, and hopefully we can continue these conversations, and we will have more to say to members moving forward. But thank you so much for being so open and so passionate and committed in what you've been talking to us about today. Onward. Thank you, Tracey.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. Pleasure is all mine.